See, I don't know. I'm not sure if things would have been different if Edelgard knew the reasons why Rhea did what she did. Just because the consequences of it were so deeply personal, I think she would have a really hard time separating that from Rhea's reasoning. I think if the church had made improvements over the course of the centuries and Rhea had stopped punishing humanity for being deceived by the Agarthans, maybe this would have made a difference. But because she did continue to oppress humanity and continue that whack-a-mole game of not really doing anything against those who slither in the dark and just sort of letting them go unchecked while punishing the people they use as pawns, it really just doesn't justify her behavior well enough that I think people who have been directly impacted by it would let it go. Which is sad, because I think that on a fundamental level, they could understand these things in isolation, but they didn't happen in isolation. Like, the Nabateans should have been able to give their blood and their abilities a crest to anyone they deemed worthy, and not have that be, like, a crime? Or an injustice on the part of people who weren't chosen? But I do think that there would have to be some sort of ramifications in place if this person went on and did something with that ability that was not acceptable. But there's nothing to suggest in canon that that happened. It's just that the Agarthans wanted it and they couldn't have it unless they proved themselves deserving in the eyes of the Nabateans. And for them, they were like, well, that's not fair. And I'm like, it's perfectly fair, my dude. Nobody owes you their magical blood. And at the time, there wouldn't have even been any, like, special weapons to go with the crest. It would just be, like, the crest. And I think Hubert has enough of a stabilizing influence on Edelgard that he would be able to understand these things in their own right and argue on their behalf, but it doesn't cover everything else that she did. Like, if she had hunted down the Agarthans more over the course of all the centuries that she had a chance to do so, if she had put measures in place to prevent what happened with House Ordelia, or prevent the insurrection of the Seven, these would have been like, okay, it's not the church's fault, Rhea is doing the best she can. Hubert talks about this stuff more often than Edelgard does, and one of the things he says is that the goddess failed to properly govern the world in his A support with Byleth. Essentially, the church has.